COVID hit, left the company, had no responsibilities, beat the video game, wandering around, had no idea what I wanted to do. Over the last few years, I picked up a camera and I just started kind of trying to put in reps. Just if I could film something, go for it, bought a drone. And then a couple years later, like kind of just came to the realization that the next thing that I wanted to at least try, the next mountain I wanted to climb was trying to tell meaningful stories through YouTube. YouTube's like a platform that I felt like I could do that best.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 147 of the 505 podcast. Today we got Jake Kassan on the show. Now he sold Movement watches for over $300 million, and after it was all said and done, he came out with over $100 million to himself. He also is fresh off a viral YouTube video, and we go into all things content creation on this episode.
He felt like he essentially beat the video game of business, but he still felt like he was missing something, which is purpose. So we go into how to find your purpose and why purpose is so important. We also talked to him about what it took to build Movement watches to over 9 figures and what he learned during that process that he's now putting into his YouTube channel.
This is one of our favorite episodes. We don't want to hold you any longer. Let's get into it. All right, Jake, I'm going to show you how to do it from over here. That was a really good one. I kind of missed a little bit. I'm going to give myself a 7-9. Go. What do you got for me? That was horrible.
Oh, God.
Absolutely awful.
Oh, God.
Miserable.
Density.
It's
4.8. What do you got?
It's also not fair that I have a soda here. Hold on. Oh, that was pretty good. Oh, I dented it though.
You did.
You can't see.
Ooh, Crater City, dude. Okay, 4.9. Welcome to the show, Jake. Cheers from across the pond.
Thanks, man. Cheers, guys.
Jake, we made $100 million. We sold our company. We sold Movement watches. Now you're a YouTuber. Take us through the moment when you sell your company and now you're dedicating a lot of your time towards creating content on YouTube.
Well, it's been kind of a long journey. Sold the company in 2018. Stayed with Movement for a couple years after that, kind of part of the plan. And then COVID hit, left the company and kind of just like had no responsibilities. Like literally beat the video game, wandering around, had no idea what I wanted to do. I was just enjoying waking up, smoking weed, playing video games, working out, hanging with friends. Like I was just, and I felt like I deserved it because like I had, I'd made money. Like I didn't have to work. I never have to work again. But a couple years into it, you kind of start to feel like lost, trying to figure out like what it is that you want to do next. And yeah, I think I always had this like love for film. I've always been inspired by film growing up. And then I used to kind of edit bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvah videos when I was like, 15 or whatever. And so I always knew I had a passion for that. And over the last few years, yeah, I picked up a camera and I just started kind of trying to put in reps. Just, if I could film something, go for it, bought a drone. And then a couple years later, like kind of just came to the realization that the next thing that I wanted to at least try, the next mountain I wanted to climb was trying to tell meaningful stories, through YouTube. YouTube's like a platform that I felt like I could do that best. I made some reels. I didn't get the fulfillment out of it. So anyways, yeah, I'm 2 YouTube videos in. The last one, took off, kind of went semi-viral, 500,000 views, which is crazy. And so now I'm just kind of drinking from the fire hose, trying to figure out, what's next.
We'll get right back into the show, but we have to let you know that the Dream Client Accelerator waitlist is live now in the description. I'm going to be giving you so much game over the next 30 days that you can apply directly into your business to raise your rates and work with better clients and crush it this year in your creative business.
The Dream Client Accelerator is a 6-week live cohort where we meet twice a week, and Fig and I are going to teach you how to double your rates and work with your dream clients. And the way we do that is by teaching you the 4 P's and the L, which are positioning, pricing, pitching, personal brand, and lead generation.
We cover everything in the DCA, so go check it out. Let's get back into the episode. Was there a specific moment that, you felt like I need to do something else? Like you're vibing, you're having a great time. Was there a moment that popped into your head where you're like, I can't keep doing this anymore. Like I need to find something else to kind of fill this bucket back up?
Dude, when people used to so I remember every entrepreneur, every banker we talked to, like they'd say like, oh, if you sell or once you sell, like you'll do something else. You'll do something else. And man, I was like the kid that like I always was like, no, I won't. Like I want to be I think deep down, like I'm a pretty, I have this lazy side to me. And I think that the motivation that kind of I have inside me has historically been like fear of not being successful, fear of, kind of being broke and having to and not having money to live the life that I wanted to live. So like my motivation was to get to a point where I can just chill and relax and not work, have zero stress. But so yeah, I would have been the last person to tell you that I'd want to find, I want to find more work for myself. But I think it was just like, I don't know if there's a single point. Actually, you know what there was? I think I left the company, and it was around right after COVID started like kind of opening up. And I just got out of a relationship. So like now I didn't have anyone to hang out with every day. I was like truly alone. My business partner was like engaged at the time. All my friends were working because that's what people do in their like late 20s and early 30s. And I just remember kind of walking around Venice and Santa Monica, in the morning where like I was just by myself, and I had so much time, but I didn't know what to do. Like I was looking on ways to kill that time, and that little like that feeling just grew. Like you go and you travel, and it'd be fun while you travel, but then you go home, and like I think responsibilities just ground you as a person. And I think as I had no responsibilities, and I hadn't like really thought about like what responsibilities I wanted. I didn't have a wife, I didn't have kids, I didn't have a dog, I didn't have any other. Like I was set. So it just kind of grew and grew and grew until it kind of manifested into, some mental health stuff, where then it started to like weigh on me. And when you're like not sharp mentally, then it's tough to get out of that headspace, So it became a burden in the sense where I was like, fuck, I can't just start something. Like even when I bought the camera, you can't just wake up and be like super motivated to do something, Like when you look at a list of things, I didn't see YouTube. YouTube was like this like far-fetched idea at the time. Like I was like, I honestly be a DJ. Like I like music. I like film. But like the idea of actually pursuing any of those things seems so far-fetched. So, yeah, it took me just being like, okay, let me break this down into just what it is what can I do today? And that was just like pick up a camera and just go start filming random shit, to be honest, like just the beach, birds, whatever, dude. So
it's funny. We always talk about like when we first pick up a camera, we always just film flowers. Like anybody who starts their creative journey films flowers or shoots flowers for whatever reason.
I got at least like 20 of them on my laptop somewhere deep in the archives. Yeah. Flag on the play.
What's going on, Fig?
Okay, so you know how in your film the color is like so much of the battle.
It really is, and it's really hard to color.
God, it's a pain.
Yeah.
The look and feel, it's kind of everything when it comes to making your videos. Motion Array just came out with LUTs, and they have an unlimited category that you guys can go and fiddle through, look through so many different options and add them into your videos. I mean, they got cinematic, the teal and orange, the film looks, they got everything, and you can have unlimited downloads. You also, if you use the 505 Pods code, down below you get $50 off a year subscription. So go check it out, try out the LUTs, let us know what you think.
How important would you say is it for someone to have purpose? Especially for you, it's like, yeah, you could kind of just do whatever, but at some point you got bored of it and it almost became a burden to you, like you said. So how important is it for someone to have purpose in life?
I mean, I think it's everything. Like I think as humans, we've always, only until the last, whatever it is, few hundred years, have humans, or even a couple hundred years, have humans been able to like hoard enough wealth where they don't need to work. Like we're in this, especially now, like with crypto, like there's a lot of young people who just made a ton of money, like possibly without having like a strong skill set. And now they just don't know what to do next. Like they just have money. They don't have to work. May not be as much money as I made, or maybe more, but it's like, as humans, especially as a man, like, typically a man's role has been to go and like provide for his family. And we're getting married older now, right? Like people are just like getting married later or not at all. And like work is such this thing that in the States where it becomes your identity. So, if you, for me, who like kind of lost that identity, it's like I found it to be, you lose a huge piece of yourself with it. So I think everyone needs purpose. Now, how to find that is, I think, really challenging. You can find purpose, whether it's family, like responsibilities, I think is a big one. Sometimes you can find purpose in something that you love, which could be your work, could be your family, it could be your wife, it could be, giving back to someone or taking care of someone. But if you don't know what it is and you have like the freedom, even if you're, young, it's like, you just got to try stuff. You got to almost be disciplined in the sense to just show up and like not focus on, which I was so focused on my entire life, is the destination. When I sell the company, when I have $1 million company, like then I'll be happy, or then I'll be able to see more clearly. Like the reality is, and it's hard. It's a challenge, but like learn to enjoy this process of it, right? And learn to just show up. Showing up is the most important part. It's cliche, but like I use the gym as the best analogy because it's what I know. But you show up day one at the gym and it sucks. Like you're scared. You feel people are looking at you. You don't know what you're doing. You're sore the next day. You're about to throw up, and then
we're past that. Dude.
And then
week
even
3, I'm good.
You're good. And then like week after week, it's still maybe bad, but like month after month 1, you feel a little bit better. And then you don't see those results until like, 3-4 months later. Sometimes it's a year, whatever it may be. And I think, but it's the discipline in showing up. And I think it's hard when you don't, it's hard when there's no guarantees, but if you just don't focus on like those guarantees and just focus on showing up and shooting the birds or the bugs or the flowers, it's like, you're just doing it because like, by showing up is a win. And I think that's where I changed my mindset with like how to find purpose for myself. So
did you feel like you were happy during the period while you were working at Movement actively? Like or was there a period where you're like, I'm still maybe a little bit depressed, or was it always like after the sell and whatnot that you did feel like you were maybe a little bit depressed?
Yeah, I don't think I never felt any sort of depression during Movement. I definitely had some like mental health, like anxiety stuff. But I think I was like very fulfilled. It was like anytime you're proving to yourself that you can do something that scared you or that you didn't know that you were capable of, mix that with like the money, right? I'm seeing, granted at the time, whatever. It was like I was seeing more money than I had ever seen. You're getting external validation from press, from people, from people who doubted you. So there's this accumulation of all these things happening. And there's moments of happiness for sure. Was I doing what I wanted to do for like, was I showing up and like really loving what it was, or was it some of these external components, the money, the the validation, all those things that I think probably getting those like really made me feel amazing. But when I look back, like was that something where like I was happy throughout? Like, no, not necessarily. And I think I'm fortunate where like selling a company or having time, money gives you time. And I think that the fortunate thing that I've been able to do now is just have the time to like test in different areas. Like if you don't have money, you have to just stick to something. And I think even like creators, like sometimes, fortunately, like with this YouTube channel, like I can create what I want and I don't care about the outcome. I really don't care about the outcome. I may have to like remind myself of that, but I don't care. But I think if I was starting off, like my mindset would be, okay, how do I monetize this? And I'd be probably working even more on it, and I'd be pushing out, more videos or saying yes to more opportunities or thinking more from a, financial perspective, which there's good and bad in that. But in either way, you're going to be fulfilled by that work.
Jake, something that surprised me in a positive way was how vulnerable you got in the video, which is why I think it took off, And you talk about having a panic attack, and I want to say I've had 2 panic attacks ever in my life. And the first time I didn't even realize I was having one, but it was scary. I almost freaked myself out to the point where like I couldn't get out of bed, and I was like going through this crazy thing in my mind. I was like, what the fuck is happening? It's a really scary feeling. But a lot of people, I feel like, resonated with that because, anxiety and panic attacks is something that you hear about quite often now. What allowed you to be so vulnerable in that video? And like, how has that response been from the audience?
Yeah, I think that's just something I've learned over time. Like I've had to there's like this stigma with mental health, or at least there was more so, especially with men. Like, I think men just don't talk about it. And, I remember when I had my first panic attack when I was like in my early 20s, I was running Movement, and it was like the beginning of Movement. And I typed into Google, CEOs that had panic attacks, like trying to just relate with someone. And there just wasn't a lot of people talking about this. So you feel like you're on this island by yourself, like you're fucking dying or having a heart attack. And the reality is, I think with whatever it could be, social media or just, who knows exactly what's going on. But like, yeah, it's, mental health is becoming more and more prevalent today than ever before. And, or mental health issues and anxiety and depression. And I don't know, just I found that with people, if I'm vulnerable first, I get them to open up, simply put. Like, and I think I've been vulnerable to enough people, men, women, like whomever, where I've shared something and I've gotten really, really, really profound, meaningful like conversations. And like, I've gotten other people to open up to me, which I've just really appreciated. And I just kind of realized that, hey, I'm going to open up to people. They may not understand. They may understand. I don't really care. And in terms of this, like, it was scary. Someone told me this quote, share your scars, not your wounds. And, I thought that was interesting. And, I feel like this was enough of a scar that like it's in the past that I was comfortable with kind of sharing what was going on. But, from the comments, I got a bunch of people who either, comments, but also just like directly to me. I had a bunch of people outreach who are going through stuff or have gone through stuff. And that's the stuff that is super meaningful to me. Or just being a voice to people who haven't heard like a successful, person talk about their mental health struggles, right? Because that's the biggest thing. It's like, I'm a high achiever. I want to do well. But when you don't see someone else in that's kind of in your shoes or dealing with something, you feel like, oh, maybe it's impossible for me to get to where they got. But the reality is like so many athletes deal with this too. Like that was something I've really seen is like, so many athletes go through this, especially because they're the most similar in the sense to me where like they're in their 30s, they retire, they work their whole life for this thing. It's done. Now they have to reinvent themselves, right? But like they didn't have time to spend on anything else besides basketball or, whatever sport they're doing. So that's like the most relevant to me. And yeah, you hear a lot of athletes talking about it too, which is cool.
Did you chat with any athletes or any former business owners who are around your age who had sold their companies and just, kind of like just chatting through stories of maybe what this was like for them and maybe how it relates to your story? I'm curious if you can recall any of that advice that you might have gotten.
There wasn't many. Like I sold it early enough where like the majority of the people I talked to were older and, already had a wife, already had kids. So they already had that like balance to some degree of purpose. They still went through this weird phase because it was such a big piece of their identity, 10, 15 years of building a company. And over the years, I've talked to more founders who have sold or have been close to selling. Cause like my story is great in the sense that I had a successful sale, but some people just go out of business. Right? Like they still lose their identity and have to reinvent themselves, but never sell. So I've talked to people who have sold. I've talked to people who haven't sold. And yeah, man, a lot of these people, they struggle. Like everyone deals it with their own way. Some people love just building. And if you love building a business, then like go and do it again. I've never talked to him, but like Alex Hormozi talks about how he just loves building a business. Like that's fun for him. So if work and fun are kind of like tied into it, then go build a bigger business. Because there is some fun in that. It's like you're building, if that's your strength and your skill set, it's still being creative to some degree. But yeah, for me, I knew that I didn't want to go and start another e-commerce business. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew that wasn't something that got me excited. And that's what really kind of fucked me up. Cause I was like, I couldn't tell you what it was that like I cared about to the degree I cared about movement when I was like growing it and the money and the, all those things. So
did you feel like, after you sell, is it hard in your opinion to just find like friends and like, because does it feel like people are just trying to get something from you? I'm just curious of like what that might be like,
Yeah. You also told us that you found almost a lack of empathy from people. It's like, champagne problems type of thing. Like you have all this money, like how could you be sad? So can you talk to us a little bit about the relationships with like family and friends post?
Yeah, post so.
Yeah, I mean, man, everyone has, I think not everyone, a lot of people have good intentions. But they just don't, it's just, you just don't know, you just don't understand. Like, I think people who are like, a lot of people who are like highly motivated sometimes, not always, but sometimes are I think there's some insecurities that kind of like drive them, like, and I'll be the first one to say that. Yeah. I mean, I think that I was highly motivated to kind of, win and be successful because I wanted this life that I think, probably like muted out some of those insecurities. But so I don't know, when you're talking to people, like they just don't, they're just not in your shoes. So they mean well, but there's this disconnect, and they don't have the answers. You don't expect them to have the answers. So a lot of times I'm just oversharing to people, hoping someone's going to be, my guru and like give me the answers. And I just couldn't find it. I've talked to founders who've sold for $500 million and they're doing ayahuasca retreats and telling me they got to go, this is the path. And I'm like, and I'm just sitting there like, fuck, do I have to go do ayahuasca to like, to like, dude. And then I have friends who are doing MDMA therapy and like all these things. Don't get me wrong. I've done I've done a lot of therapy. I even did ketamine therapy a handful of times, but like none of that was like, it was helpful in a sense, not ketamine therapy, but like therapy is just talking about stuff was helpful, but nothing. Yeah, there's just this disconnect, man. So I don't know. It's LA was a tough place for me because I had this identity where everyone knew movement. So you go into a room and people are talking about this thing that you don't want to talk about, and your calendar's full of invitations and people that you realize like, okay, I don't run movement anymore. Like, it's not that I don't like these people. It's just like, I don't want to talk. I don't want to entertain any of this. Like, I need to figure out what the hell's next for me. So you almost have to go and remove yourself from kind of that social circle and to reinvent yourself. So that's why I moved to San Diego. And, but then, there I kind of just distracted myself with some of these like, these pleasures, like, yeah, smoking weed and video games and drinking and, just having fun. And not like I was going on benders or anything, but it was just, I could kind of do what I wanted. And I didn't have the same discipline to like go and like build out work and like responsibilities. Cause I was like, what the motivation there, money was no longer my motivation. So I had to like figure out why I cared enough about something to go and spend 3-4 hours a day doing it. Right.
Also, with money not being the motivation with YouTube as well, like because the outcome like doesn't really matter to you, right? Because it's like you don't need it. It's like just for fun. Is it freeing to create without any expectations or like wanting to get something out of it when it comes like, I guess, the monetary side of things?
I think the money side, I mean, it's like what I know now, and it's what I've known for the last like 4 or 5 years. So like, yes, I think it probably is more freeing than thinking about it from a monetary perspective, but there's still this sense of I'm creating this for me. If it gets 100 views, I'm happy. If it gets 100,000, even like there's still a game to that. Like you still are excited about it resonating, the better it does. Like ideally it resonated more. Like, so there's still something there. So you just have to like maintain you kind of put a throttle the brain of like not letting it care too much about that, but still being motivated by that. So it's tough. Like, yeah, I think there's also, I don't know. Yeah, I guess it's just tough to like balance it. There's also this element that I think about where, when you're hungry, you say yes to everything, right? And you wear multiple hats and you're working jobs that you don't want to work, but you're learning, right? You're just learning so much more because of that. Same thing with movement. Like when I was there, I'd say yes to everything. I don't care if it scared the hell out of me or I didn't want to do it. I just said yes to things, and I learned so much because of that. Now I don't need to say yes to certain things. So it's this, and so I have to force myself at times to do certain things, to show up, to whatever, but like someone who's hungry is probably going to learn faster and get more out of it. Like they have a competitive advantage because they simply want it more than maybe unhealthy. They may want it more in an unhealthy manner, but like oftentimes when you don't have anything, like you're hungrier than the guy that has something,
Right now, what are you trying to share on YouTube? Like, what do you hope people get when they come to Jake's channel? What do you hope they get out of those videos?
I realized that I'm a deep thinker, first off. So I spend a lot of time in my head. I think about, and I love psychology. I love thinking about why people do things, why people think the way they think, why I think the way I think. And I found that like when I have these deep intellectual conversations, like I get really stimulated, and I feel like I have good takes on stuff. At least that's what I'm told. And even just, you know, when it comes to kind of like interpersonal stuff and emotional, you know, as it relates emotionally and creatively, like, so for me, it's kind of like I relate it to the show Boy Meets World, which was like on the Disney Channel when I was growing up, where it's like this form of entertainment, kind of like my life journals, if you will. So I'm making these like journals, cinematic journals, with some kind of theme of like philosophy on like life lessons that I've learned, whether it's from mentors of mine or family or just through my life experience. You know, like, yeah, I'm 33. I've fortunately done a lot, and I have a lot of like life experience in some ways and less in others. But I don't know. I think that this is a way for me to share it. Like, I'm not a outspoken kind of vlogger who's going to talk to the camera and be the loudest guy in the room. I'm thinking about the things I want to say, the message I want to say. I'm sharing it. These are my stories. This is my point of view for me. And if it resonates with someone, fantastic, even better. But like, I'm not telling anyone how to live their life. I just want to share what I'm going through. So each episode, at least as it stands now, is kind of like something I'm dealing with, going through. Like, I just moved. I'm living in Australia now. So the experience of moving to another country in my 30s, you know, kind of what I thought it would be, what it is, what it isn't, what I miss or how I feel, like meeting new people, new communities, like all this stuff that just kind of comes into that. And I don't know, it's just like authentic and raw, and it's what's actually going on, and people will either resonate or they won't, and then kind of that's okay.
But I think that type of content does the best. Like, money aside, those are experiences that everybody deals with. You know what I'm talking about? Within the YouTube video creation process, what has been your favorite? Is it, you know, the pre-production, storytelling, the filming, the editing?
I'm still trying to figure that out, to be honest. Like, I think I like being in this flow state, you know, like sitting down at the computer, cup of coffee, and you're just kind of, you're going down a rabbit hole. It may or may not work, but like you do it, you come back to it, like just playing around. I think, you know, in the editing process, or having an idea and trying to make it work. I think it's like having this idea and then trying to like, you know, make that idea work. But I think what I'm struggling with at this stage is like, you know, I've done a handful of Instagram reels, like edited wise, and then I've done these 2 videos. Like, besides that, like I haven't done a ton. So it's just, I'm still learning, you know. It's like I'm still, you know, I picked up a handful of different programs, from Milanote to Notion to all these, you know, just to figure out how to like organize things. I'm using DaVinci for coloring and editing. And I'm just trying to, so I don't know. I'm still learning, but I think that I really like sitting at the computer and just diving into like, you know, the film and editing once I have a vision. But like early stages of like organizing it all and putting it together and just seeing a bunch of clips that don't really go well together, I think is still like an intimidating thing. But going back to my own advice, I'm just trying to show up and just do it every day and just not think about what it's going to be. It's just like, hey, if I fucking come in and spend a couple hours editing, like that's a win.
Do you structure your day at all now, or do you try to keep them as open as possible to just kind of see where it takes you now that you're in Australia?
I try and be not super structured. I think I've never been a very structured person. When I was at Movement, I fortunately had different meetings I'd have to be at, or different people that I'd have to, you know, work with, or calls, whatever. But now I'm trying to have some relatively flexible structure, though, that, you know, I know that in the morning I can come and spend, you know, an hour or two editing. I kind of have like the to-do list, a shot list, storyboarding, like all those things that I know kind of what's on the agenda for the day, with flexibility. Like if there's a day where I don't want to do anything, like, and I have other plans, like I'll go and do that. But, you know, at least now it's like I'm not sitting at home trying to you know, just like stall or distract myself, you know, like I have something that needs to get done, and I have this responsibility, especially with, you know, the fact that I have subscribers now. It just feels like there is this like additional responsibility to like, yeah, like come out with more content. And, but I'm also not rushing myself. Like I'm going to make sure I enjoy going down rabbit holes, even if it evolves to nothing. Like that's still a learning process, right?
Movement, you guys did such a great job on the marketing side of things with content. You guys were at like the forefront, I feel like, of influencer marketing. I feel like that's a huge reason why the company grew so big. Was there anything that you took away or learned from when you were growing and building Movement from like the marketing side that you're incorporating into, you know, your YouTube journey?
I mean, a lot of things, man. It's like, yeah, I think one of the biggest things early on was that, you know, how do we emotionally attach like our customers to the brand? And so early on, it was the word that we found was like, you know, it was like aspiration, right? How do we like, you know, inspire people to live a certain type of life? And that's where we jumped on to like, we found Sam Colder and we found Jacob and we found Roy Kramer, all these guys who were like living these amazing lives. And that was just like, that was one part of like the branding. But so that was a big one, just evoking emotion. And then testing has been another thing. Like, you know, like I played around with just testing the thumbnails, which was successful on that second video. And just testing in general, like understanding that like you will fail but you have to test and learn. Like that's part of the process. So just like making that part of the culture, test and learn.
Was that everything that you would tell the people that would come work for you? Would you be like, hey, don't be afraid to like make a mistake. Like we're just gonna keep moving forward from this? I
mean, early days, yeah, you never want to take big like Hail Marys. You never want to just be like, let's bet everything on this idea.
Pull out the life savings.
Yeah, otherwise, yeah, it's just not good. But oftentimes, you know, we would just be like, hey, like, let's go and like test these 10 different things. If 3 of them work, then we'll double down on those 3, make our money back, you know? And that was just kind of the idea with testing there. Like we had this testing kind of ethos within like the content we even put out, like, let's just play around with this. So it was, yeah, I mean, it's in a lot of ways, like Movement was this like marketing branding kind of engine. We understood e-commerce and marketing and branding. Like I love the psychology of, you know, our consumer and what they wanted and why they wanted it. And yeah, that's what I enjoyed. Like, again, the creation. I think I enjoyed probably like the couple years, or, you know, first 3 years at Movement more than anything. 'Cause that was just like this, that was like validating the concept, right? Like it was like, oh, your first video that goes viral. It's I knew people would enjoy this type of content, this type of product. So
when did you know that you had something?
It's weird. The first interaction was just like, you know, I've sold a handful of products growing up, like different products that were more niche, and
like the t-shirt, the glow t-shirts.
Yeah, glow in the dark t-shirts, like rave lights, bunch of weird shit. And this was, and yeah, exactly, dude. Exactly. And these were the first ones where we had the prototypes of Movements, and walking like in college down the street, and we show this kid, our neighbor, and he instantly was like, bro, like, can I buy that one off you? Like, I'll buy it. And that was the first interaction. I've like never seen someone, and kind of that same thing happened a handful of times. And then fast forward 2-3 months later, like we had done 200 grand in, you know, the first 60 days. And then that year we did $1 million. So every year after that, it was like, it just revalidated like, okay, we have something. Wait. We have something bigger. And then by year 3 or 4, we're like, we can like sell this company one day, you know, because it was just at this like went from 1 million to 7 million to 30 million in 3 years. So when you're sitting at $30 million in revenue and you start looking at all these other brands and how much they're making, and we're bootstrapped, we never like raised outside money. So it was like, this is actually a business that, like, now we understand like what we have here. What
would you say was your favorite part of that building phase, those first 3 years? Like, were you trying to figure out what makes people actually check out on the website, or was it more like kind of the nitty gritty? I'm very curious as to what you enjoyed the most and why.
Oh, dude, man, I think the early days, like, again, I used to go and just get these like a coffee, like sitting in my parent, like when I, you know, it was me and my business partner was my college roommate. So for year 1, before the business even started, we would like collaborate and everything. But after college, we would both, he'd be in San Diego, I'd be in LA, and and I just sit at my desk or not my desk, I'd sit at my dining room table at my parents' house, cup of coffee, headphones, and just be listening to like motivational mixes and just be like working on just kind of how to scale the business, like just getting in that flow state, right? And I think those moments were some of my most, like, those moments translating into it working were some of like my favorite moments. And then that compounds with working with a close group of friends and winning together and seeing moments where, you know, like again, for us, it wasn't a viral video. For us, it would be a Black Friday, you know, hitting a new sales number. And we'd just be stoked about it. We go to dinner. You're just dreaming. Like, you're just talking about it, talking about the vision. So it was more of like working on something, kind of being in the pocket, and then celebrating that win would just be like kind of daydreaming about like what's to come, with like, you know, grabbing a nice meal that you can now afford. It was just like those wins of those moments are the best. And I think what I would say is, like, back then I got into this bad habit at some point of just thinking about the wins didn't matter to me anymore. It was just, how do I sell the company? You know, it was like every year for the last few years before we sold, it was just like, cool. Once we had projections, that kind of changed everything for me. Cause then it was like, if we don't hit this number, we're not winning anymore. Even though we might've been growing, we're not growing as fast as we think we should. And you have to have that in business to some degree, and you have to understand that. But like, I kind of didn't want to be at that company subconsciously. I think my body knew that, like, this, I don't want to do this for another 10 years, you know, like, this is, my personality type isn't a, you know, running a company type of personality type, dealing with conflict and managing people and like just putting out fires. I'm like a thinker. Like, I'm quiet. Let me think before I speak, and just, I'd rather, you know, write out a thorough response than like just think about it at the top of my head. So,
dude, I'm cheesing because I can relate, not on the level that you're at, but me and Braden, man, with this podcast, we'll sit and we'll just dream big. Year 3 is a little different than your year 3, but yeah, we're making progress slowly but surely. But man, nothing hits harder than a morning cup of coffee. And I'm like, Braden, going to the moon today, dude. Let's fucking go. Like,
bro,
but I feel like those are like the
Those-
moments that you like look back on, like, once you do grow it to the place that you think it's possible, and maybe even surpass that, you just are like, man, the fun part was like when you were growing it and you weren't at that place yet and you were just dreaming big.
for sure. And doing it with your buds, dude.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like something that I didn't really realize, because after I sold the company, you know, you're kind of on your own unless you want to start something else, and people have different visions. But you look at all these like celebrities and how they all hire their best, you know, high school friends to be in their entourage, like the show Entourage. It's because
Great show.
like people are just happier when they have like their people around. They're able to like give back. They're able to like collaborate. You know, it's challenging sometimes because you're dealing with different personality types and egos and all this shit. But if you can have two people who like really respect each other's like views and outlooks and realize how special it is to like win with someone, like, I'd so much rather, you know, win with someone than win more alone. Like, and I work better with people in general, but you know, it's just a better feeling when you have someone to share that shit with. So
Why watches? Like, out of everything that you could have made a company around, like, why watches?
I had the other businesses kind of in the, not fashion, but like, yeah, glow in the dark, you know, novelty products. And with that, I realized, like, I'd go to a party in college and I'd wear this shirt and, you know, I'd get one person be like, oh, that's a sick shirt. Everyone else would be like, cool. But like, we don't care. And it was just novelty. It was niche. And I wanted a product that I could sell to, like, I felt like I could sell to anyone. I can go up to a room of like 10 people and at least get, you know, half of them to give it a glance. So I wanted like something that was more mass market. I was broke as hell. Like, I was literally had a credit card debt of $5,000 and I was about to go get a job at anywhere I could because I was like about to default. And I don't know, we just started looking at like what was out in the space that, like, we were looking at like from head to toe, like what was things that we wanted to wear or brands that we liked. And watches was the one thing that was like, it didn't seem simple. Well, in our heads, I guess it seems simple enough where it's like, this is a watch. It's one size. There's only a couple brands in the States that like I really knew for that was at a good price point. Fossil being one of them. Nixon Watches was another brand at the time. And then there were some other like smaller brands that people probably don't even know. But they were like 300 to 500 minimum, right? Like most of them were kind of pushing that $500 mark. And I couldn't afford a $100 to $200 watch. So it was just kind of like I wanted a watch that was more affordable. The brands were more like skate or punk or this or that, like nothing that was just like, hey, well, this is a modern kind of fashion, you know, like had this brand that kind of like evoked an emotion that was more general to just like this aspirational fashion forward kind of demographic. And I was that demographic. Like I was in the workforce, kind of like wanted to dress well, wanted a brand that I kind of resonated with, and there just wasn't anything out there. So I don't know, in a way, like you're looking for concepts, and I think you at some point you just got to be like, okay, this is the best. This is the best. And you know what I would say is like, you try and like find reasons, and I do this a lot internally. I find reasons why something won't work. You know, like my mind's constantly, one day I'll have an idea and I'll be like, no, that's stupid. And I just write down the ideas, and like one day you just aren't able to like think of a good reason why something won't work, or the reason just isn't strong enough. You're like, fuck it, like this is worth me going in on. And that was kind of that with watches. We weren't sure why there wasn't anyone else that was doing what we wanted to do. And then after like the first few months of like the success, we realized, okay, like there's a need for this. People want this.
Did you ever have to go and raise more money? I know you did an initial raise from Indiegogo of $290,000. Did you have to go raise any more money? And I have a follow-up question right after you answer that.
So that was just crowdfunding. So that was just basically pre-orders is what that was. Okay. So we basically said we don't have a business, or we have a business, we don't have product. Give us 6 months, we'll ship you these watches. And this is the concept. So we got that $300,000 in pre-orders. And then from that point, like we never actually raised money. So we never gave away equity in exchange for money. It was always like a loan from a friend or a bank, but it was like minimal. Like the business was funded off of basically credit card debt.
So you never had to go deal with someone being like, Jake, you got to do it like this. You'd be like, no, this is my show. This is exactly how we're doing it. You never had to deal with these outside people.
No, until you sell the business and then you're owned by someone else. And then there's, you know, the inner workings of all that. But that was a good relationship. They were great.
So let me ask you this. So you have this initial $300,000. People are buying it. How do you actually then go scale? Is this the early days of like Facebook ads and whatnot? Like, how are you getting other people to buy these watches? And it just exploded.
I mean, yeah, you just kind of figure it out. You know, early days it was Instagram or Twitter. So we were like, all right, let's jump on Instagram. And then first year was just like working with different press. So I get a list of 200 different, this is where I drink coffee, and I'd go and scrape 200 emails from different press people. I'd go on Reddit and I'd post different stuff. And then I'd use VPNs to upvote my own, you know, Reddit posts to get like higher ranking. And we would just slowly do things like that to just be hacky and just start to just small wins, you know, like we generate, you know, 50 grand or 100 grand in a month for something, which was good for us, but it was just like, it was a lot of work to kind of get that. And then year two was when I like taught myself through some podcasts and I think YouTube videos how to run kind of meta ads. And that's just when it all took off. And then once I learned, okay, I can go and spend, you know, $20 and sell $100 watch. Like I'll do that all day. Let me go figure out how to do that on podcasts. Let me go figure out how to do that in Google ads, on YouTube. And that's when like the business really started to scale, and we started to reinvest in women's products and influencers and collabs. And yeah, just kind of like, you know, snowballed from there.
Was there a certain marketing campaign that you guys did that was just the most successful by a landslide?
That's a good question, man. Our Facebook strategy early on was just test and learn. You know, we would have pictures that someone took in the office. We'd have pictures that a customer took. We'd have professional shots, and we would just test and test and test. And we just have different stuff there that was working. In terms of like one campaign that just absolutely crushed, we had one watch that at one point was like, I think it was like 10% of the entire business. So like one watch, like that was just like this watch that, and this one picture that just for whatever reason, people just love this picture, love this watch. And it was just absolutely, it was, you know, probably, I don't know, like, yeah, $5 to $8 million of the business, like one watch. So that was a pretty crazy thing. But our biggest thing is we worked with like, we paid Kylie Jenner back in the day to post on Instagram. And I think what happened was she posted another watch brand right before, and we're like a day before or something. We're like, what the fuck? Like we just like we just asked you to post for us, and you're posting another watch brand. And then she posted it, and I think it did okay, but still, like, I imagine that like a significant amount of people chose to buy the first advertisement they saw. And then we had our post one more time, and the second post she posted, and then Instagram has one of its blackouts, right? That like it never fucking has. And Instagram goes like out in like 50% of the world or something. And that one also, like, I mean, we made our money back, I think, but like it should have done much better. And it was what it was. So that was stressful. And you know, you can imagine, like, that was kind of like the closest Hail Mary moment we probably ever had. And that's why you don't gamble on Hail Mary moments, because that could just, like, you know, fall apart.
That is so crazy. The one time that it just stops working,
Man.
You're like, dude, we just paid big money for this post.
Yeah. All right, I got a fun question for you. I know you don't want to, but if everything went away and you were going to build a company again, would it be easier today than it was back then? Or do you think because of when you guys were building, it was kind of like at the start of influencer marketing, Instagram was like on the up and up? Was it easier back then, or do you think it would be easier now?
I think it would be harder to get to the scale that we got to. Like, you know, first mover advantage, you know, pricing in terms of, you know, marketing channels, like all that is it's different now. It's a different environment. But in terms of resources, now I think there's just more resources, you know, like, and also like the knowledge I have, I guess I'd say, is like also helps. But yeah, they're just like, you know, we use Shopify and Meta and all these things. And like back then they were new. It was challenging. They didn't have a ton built out. Now I think it's very well developed for, you know, small businesses to have an opportunity to scale if they're onto something.
Do you have any interest at all in helping other founders, or are you just so off of that? Like, do you have any interest in mentoring people in businesses, or have you since you've left?
So it's tough. I get messages on Instagram all the time, and I get some emails occasionally, and I do my best to like answer to ones. Usually it's like I'll answer the people who have already like have momentum. I would have never emailed anyone day one and been like, give me advice, you know, because it's like, I don't deserve. You have ChatGPT, you know, like there's so much advice out there, especially at this point, that like YouTube's podcast, like I would, you know, obsessively listen to different resources before I asked anyone for advice. And yeah, so I don't know. I think what I do now though is, so I answer emails and messages, and then there's also an app that I've also invested in a handful of like entrepreneurs. So if I really believe in the business and entrepreneur, like I'll invest in them, and then it kind of goes two ways. It's like I've now given my money, and then I'll give my time to this person. And then there's also an app I invested in called, I think it's Use Intro, which is an app where you basically can, like, people pay. It's like, you know, whatever the fee is, but there's a fee. And then a lot of times I'll talk to these people. If they're willing to pay, they usually already have a business that's like doing somewhat well, or they've gotten to that moment. And then a lot of times I'll keep in touch with them, or I'll, like, outside of them paying me for whatever it is, it's like a 15 to 30 minute time slot. Like, I'll give them my number and we'll talk afterwards and just kind of catch up for an hour or whatever. I mean, I enjoy helping people, but it's just like, to some degree, you have to balance that with, you know, kind of your own time as well.
How did you guys manage to get repeat customers, and how was what was your mindset when it came to repeat customers? Because I feel like with watches, I'm not really a watch guy. I'm just not rich enough to fucking be collecting Rolexes and stuff yet. But I feel like with watches, is it something where someone is going to buy it like once or multiple times? And how did you approach trying to get repeat customers?
I mean, yeah, you have to, I think people like bought from, at one point, like, yeah, they were buying one watch, and you have some people come back and buy 2, 3. Some people were collectors of movements, like, but on average, yeah, I think people were buying them for gifts, or it was like a one-off or whatever. So you just have to build out the category, or build out different categories. So we had leather straps that we started trying to sell with it, like interchangeable. We had jewelry that we came out with. We had sunglasses. We had like the blue light blockers. And then we'd come out with like collabs, or we'd come out with different styles. Just try and like build collections to like build demand in people coming back and buying different things. So you kind of have to anticipate and think about like, what does the consumer want? You either have to like sell something different to your customer who you have. So you either have to come out with a different type of product, different watch, different category, or you have to find a new customer entirely. So we were trying to do both. Is like, how do we do television? How do we do podcast, and find all these different channels while simultaneously kind of trying to, sell new things to our existing customers.
Did your business partner at the time, you mentioned like 2 years before the sell that you're like, yeah, I'm ready to get this thing like done. I want to like sell this company. Was your business partner on the same page as you, or what was that, that relationship like, if you feel comfortable sharing?
Yeah, I think he was he comfortable with selling the company? So
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think we and him were on the same. We were aligned on that. I mean, I think me and him were ready to, we wanted the financial freedom and to figure out what we wanted to do next, or what it was. I think, he's more of a watch enthusiast than I am. I'd say I wouldn't say either of us are really enthusiasts, but he definitely likes watches more than me. But yeah, we were aligned, which is good. If you're not aligned, then there's some struggle there. But still, if one founder wants out and the other one is like super passionate, it still causes kind of complications. But fashion's a hard one, man. Like, every cool brand has an uncool moment, right? Like Nike's kind of going through a weird thing right now too. So it's like, it doesn't matter how long you're on top. There's new trends, new influencers that like people who used to be cool aren't cool, or they do something controversial. So it's just a hard place to be.
What are your thoughts on those brands? What are your thoughts on like Nike right now? I feel like they're going through a huge, not a rebrand, but kind of. I mean, I recently got into running in May. Not a runner anymore at all, but I ran a little marathon. And when I was like looking for shoes and stuff, I tried Nikes. They hurt my feet like hell. I went to like the Nike University, so I felt like I had to wear Nike. Ended up going with Brooks, but I was talking to the guy at the store, and he was like, no one here that comes into this running store, which is in Brentwood, it's like one of the big, they're getting so many people with foot traffic every day. He's like, everyone's getting Brooks and Hoka. And I found that like stunning that, that they're taking a part of the market. I'm curious what kind of your opinion is on all of that going on right now.
What's also interesting though, talking about influencers and that kind of stuff. I mean, Nike, when I was in high school, I mean, Nike for forever has been fucking popping, but Pharrell and Kanye going to fucking Adidas, like, you talk about a controversial influencer, someone who's maybe popular but not as popular. I feel like it's the opposite for them. It's like you kind of made like a maybe uncool or unsexy company way cooler. So it kind of worked in the reverse.
Yeah, you're saying Adidas became cooler with.
I think so. Like
sure.
I would never,
sure.
I would never wear Adidas.
Me neither.
Like, growing up, and then Kanye and Pharrell start putting out these different shoes with them, and I'm like, it's way sicker than Nike.
For sure, dude. It's there's culture, there's influencers, and like what just influence in general. And I think the way men are influenced are different than women. I think women are very much can be influenced just by like, oh, where do you get your dress, or where do you get your shoe? It's like women are influenced by each other, where men kind of need this like, what's that?
So true, dude. My girlfriend was like, that girl, I want that girl's sweats. And I'm like, what? I don't do that. It's so.
Yeah, guys
How would you say you like? What do you buy stuff based on? Is it like that you see someone on Instagram, or like I feel like I have only a few brands that I like rotate between. You know, I'm not like really experimental with like fashion, or like if you come home wearing
I chase the trends. Whatever's hot, I'm buying.
He's got a
I
big
just want to be cool, man. I just want
shirt
to fit
on
in,
right now, dude. I'm somewhere in the middle. I mean, I think I've had different moments. When I was younger, I was especially at Movement, I felt like I gotta be in the know of, you know, what fashions were hitting, and we would kind of do this like, you know, market research. But, you know, now I'm more of I want something that's quality. I want something that, like, I don't wear basics, just basics. Like I do, there are brands that I have basics of, but I do like a brand Represent is something I wear all the time. I just
Love
like
that.
their designs. Yeah, they're expensive, but like they fit well, and I think I just like the design and you know, kind of the ethos of the brand. But yeah, I have probably like, and then there's a brand I invested in called ASRV, which is like a athleisure brand. I think they're in LA or San Diego, and so it's just, for me, it's like, I think it's like how something looks, the fit, the quality. A lot of times it's, and then if it fits well and it's durable and it lasts, like, you know, I love it. But it's hard. I think men are just different. I think in terms of shoes and Nike and all that stuff, though, it's, you know, yeah, there's just, you know, I think in terms of athletes, like they probably misstepped in terms of, you know, not getting a staff, or, you know, some of these kind of influential people. And I think they allowed, you know, in terms of culture, whether it's, you know, Yeezy or whatever, you know, a lot of these other brands are just like taking market share. And then also there's like the gym guy, which, you know, Gymshark took. So it's just being fragmented. And I think Nike probably just misstepped a handful of times. They're still obviously massive. They're still Nike, but yeah, I don't know. It's like the markets are always fragmented now. And that's why fashion's hard, because, you know, like you can still, like, there's still all these brands that are going to be out there that are popping up, or, you know, you can sell through e-commerce, Shopify, whatever it is. And I don't know, what's cool today is like, I'll get an ad for something else. I'm not like brand loyal to a lot of things, right? There's not much that I'm brand loyal to anymore. So yeah, it's a hard place to be. That's why I do food. I've invested a lot in food and beverage stuff, because if you like the taste of something, right? Like, you know, you're like, it's religious. It's in your fridge. It's in your cupboard.
So true with the drink market. I feel like,
Yeah.
like I have my yerba mate every single morning without fail. I have a subscription. I am not going to miss having my orange yerb every day.
Yeah.
Two of them to be exact. I need the caffeine, but
That's a really good point.
no, it's so true, dude. You're not wavering from your drink of choice. Or like, I've been getting into kombucha recently, and I really like this specific flavor from Health Aid. DM them, so maybe we'll work something out. But I love that drink now, and every time I go to Whole Foods, I'm like getting a 4-pack, and like I am locked in with that brand. And I used to hate that shit. Hated kombucha like 3 months ago. Started drinking a few every day. Now I just love it. It's so weird.
I will say, going back to the Adidas stuff though, like Anthony Edwards, he's like one of my new favorite players in the NBA, and him
100%.
coming out with the shoe with Adidas, and the marketing was great. And I just think of, you know, I think of basketball and I think Nike. And like Steph Curry is one of the greatest, but I'm like, I'm not buying fucking Under Armours. Like, fuck that. I might buy some Adidas. I want some Ant Edwards. I want to ask you about the process of acquisition, because I have no idea how it works. How long does the process to get your company acquired? Like, how long does that take? And what goes into it? Like, what are things that come with getting a company acquired that maybe people might not know about?
Yeah, do you have to hire like a whole new legal team to like help you out? How did it work?
Everyone's probably a little different, depending on who you have internally, depending on, some people like know exactly who they're talking to. Like they have someone who wants to buy them. They don't need to have a conversation with anyone else. They just kind of manage it internally. You need someone who's like, like knows the finance world and can, you know, help with that, because there's going to be a lot of demands. They basically want to know a lot about your business, if not everything. So for us, the way it happened is, once we were working on potentially raising money, but once we actually talked to Movato, it was like, let's sign an agreement to be basically exclusive, just to have a conversation. So I think it was like a 75-day exclusivity where we shared information, we talked to them, we met with them, they met with our team. Like, they wanted to make sure that they knew everything about who we were, what we were doing, the people behind the brand, the financials, customer data. Like they wanted to know everything just to confirm and also get a head start, like if they decided to. So we did hire, like, you have a banker who manages the process and like helps kind of with kind of some of the to-dos and some of the asks that they have. Like they're kind of like a project manager, honestly. The bankers are like project manager. You have lawyers as well. So there's negotiations of just certain, it's just like a lot of like, you almost have to hire these people just to like, one person says something, the other person says something, you meet in the middle. It's, I don't know. It's just like a standard thing, I guess. But, and it depends on like who you're working with. But, and then my team internally, my CMO, CFO, like they were just, they were going crazy on just, you'd have like this different reports and questions and again, customer data. And you'd have to, while you're running a business, you also have to go through and like manage all this information and provide it to them. So, it's a lot of time. I think the process in which we went out to go potentially raise money to the day we sold was like this 6-month period. So it was a lot of hey, we're looking to either go and like raise money to like continue to grow even bigger, and then once we started talking to them, it was like probably a 3-month period. So it's a lot of time. It really is a lot of time, and balancing running the business, which is already, your day in and day out, to this like other piece of it. So
when did the feeling of that money hitting your bank account, when did that like sink in? Because I can't even imagine.
Dude, it's like in this weird way, it's like, it's kind of, I don't know. In this weird way, it's kind of anticlimactic in the sense where like you wake up, you look at your phone, there's this, number that looks like a phone number, in your bank account. And you're like, holy shit, this is crazy. And then you're like, okay, well, I guess I'm going to go to the gym because that's what I have to do today. And then I'm going to go to work, and nothing really changes. Like, and which is probably good. Like you shouldn't go and, essentially you win the lottery. You shouldn't go and just start buying shit and going crazy. Right. Like you eventually, like, I think I bought like I bought a condo. I helped out my parents in ways. And then like, you're like, cool, I got my condo. Like you wait till you're moved into that, you're excited, and you move in. You're like, okay, sweet. Just like anything, man, like everything like normalizes. It's unfortunately how I think our brains work, in the sense that like, like your experience becomes your normal at some point, and you can try all you want to appreciate it. And I do. I try and like, gratitude journal, or just like appreciate it, think about, how lucky I am. But yeah, there's just a reality of like, it kind of normalizes. And then, so I don't know. It's like, it's a good feeling. It's this euphoric feeling, but that feeling doesn't last for the rest of your life. At most, I feel like you have some, like the moment you sell is that feeling. I think it's kind of like the virality of the video. It's like, boom, everyone's messaging you, people, elementary school teachers, I knew it, just like all these things. And like, and then like you get people all over, and then you just feel like I accomplished this destination, this thing that I wanted, just like winning a championship or an Olympic medal. And then everyone's like, what are you going to do next? And then you're just like, what the fuck? Like, I've never thought about that. Like, I didn't even know, it was a dream to even get this far. Like, and then you just, then you kind of have to just figure that out. But there's no one else, like, no one's ever seen that, right? No one's gotten to that extent. So they're like, let us know, like, what you're going to do next. And you're trying to figure it out. And it's just, it's, I'm not complaining. I know it's like a woe is me, but it's the reality of my experience and kind of what I went through.
For the 2 years that you had to stay at the brand, was it hard for you to stay at the brand post sell? Like, did you feel like, oh my God, like I'm coming back in this office, like did you feel checked out? What was that kind of like? Because I know I saw like Max Tuning just sold his company to Hershey or to Mars, and now like he's still kind of involved in it. I'm just curious, like how was that for you?
It's funny, I saw him. We worked with him a lot, and I saw him in the airport like a month before he sold. He didn't say anything to me, but it was just cool to like. I'm like, son of a bitch,
fucking bastard.
Yeah, but Yeah, I think. Sorry, say the question one more time. Fuck.
What was the process like after you sell, having to go back for those
okay.
for the 2 years working with the brand?
Yeah, so I feel like the first year we kind of had some metrics that if we achieved, we would have made more money. So I kind of just moved the goalpost in my mind. I was like, okay, cool, like more money. Like I'll be happy if I make this now. I was like, okay, just like. But I had money now. Like I had money. I didn't have to worry about it. But I kind of, as entrepreneurs do and as people do, it's like, okay, like the new normal. It's the new normal, right? Like you start getting, if all your videos start getting 100,000 views, like you want 1 million and so forth. And then, you compare your biggest win to like, that was the biggest win. Now you have to go more and more and more. But then COVID hit and kind of everything, started to get harder. And I just realized it's just not really worth me. Like we had a CEO at the time. I realized like this wasn't something, I wasn't adding a ton of value. I wanted to figure out what it was that I wanted to do next, or I just wanted actually free time. I just wanted to do nothing. And so, yeah, like it started to feel weird and I felt like, okay, it's time. Like it's hard for me to show up. I'm checked out. And that's when I was like, okay, I should probably leave because I'm not doing any favors to like the rest of, the team type of thing. So
did you have to stay on? Were they like, you have to stay on for this period of time, or did you wanted to try to hit this other number to help out the brand?
I think I stayed on for 2 years total. And I think it was partially because of the money, partially because like they just changed my life and I wanted to do good by them and just be there. But I didn't have to be there. But yeah, for the team and for everyone, it's like you want to be there. You want to, it was good experience just to see like what happens when you get acquired, what changes, what doesn't change. Learning from an organization, like those 2 years were pretty cool. Like I went to Dubai and spoke in front of a bunch of people. I went to Switzerland. I went to, they have offices and people all around the world. So I just got to see this company that's like, 100 years old that has offices and it's like a publicly traded company, like.
Yeah. What did you learn from being around a brand that's been around for that long? Cause I feel like that's so rare. Most brands don't have the legs to even make it past 10, let alone 5. Like what did you learn from being around, their chief of staff and, people that are high up at that company?
Yeah. I mean, it's a company that's been around for a while. So it's, in certain ways they have, I don't know, in certain ways it's like, they're not as I don't know, we were like this new age company that was using Shopify and trying to be disruptive, and like I think companies that have been around for a while are a little bit more not stuck in their way because they definitely innovated in their own ways, but like it's just a different culture, right? Like we were willing to just kind of like continue to break stuff. And I think companies that have been around for a while, because they're publicly traded, like there's just certain things that they have to be careful about and regulations and all this stuff. So it was just, it was just a different experience than kind of a startup culture, but also just learning how to manage a bunch of people and seeing, basically I think there's like 1,000 people on the team. So just seeing how they manage different teams and how that structure looks. And there's just a lot of meetings. And so it was like, I don't know, it was an interesting experience. Again, that's like an older company. Like I think another company that I got to see closely was Shopify, because Shopify was, we jumped on Shopify in 2013 or 14, and we won like it's called a build a business contest. So we got to go and meet the CEO of Shopify. We got to go meet the CEO, the chief COO, chief operating officer. I think Tim Ferriss was there that year. Gary Vaynerchuk, Damon John from Shark Tank, Mark Cuban was supposed to be there but didn't. But we got to be in this room with a bunch of these early founders and early people at Shopify. And this was before they went public. Now they're I don't know, I think it's an $80 billion valuation company.
I mean, we're paying them money.
Yeah. So they're I think they're the biggest company in Canada. I could be mistaken, or at least biggest tech company for sure. And they're very, very innovative. And I know that one time they moved offices, and I don't think they told any of their customers like us. Somehow we got word of it, but or maybe it was after the fact. But their entire office at one point was remote, like hundreds of people, because like their lease ended, they need to move. So it was like basically they invented, work from home, like COVID style, before it was like they didn't want anyone to know. So, and then they've like shut down meetings in terms of like, no more than like 2 meetings a week, or they have some weird policies like that, but they're just very culture focused and just innovative. So like, I don't know, I guess my point with that is just that you have, companies that have been around for decades and on decades versus, the last 10, 20 years, like different ways of thought. Like, even though they're both, billion-dollar companies, like companies can be run differently, but not something that I envy either way. Like putting out fires, having to deal with management, unhappy employees. I don't like conflict. I don't want to deal with that. I want to deal with like creating, having that cup of coffee and, being in that flow state. Like that's what I enjoy.
Yeah, me neither. I don't like conflict either.
Same.
It's not my forte.
How many employees did you guys get to before you left?
So we had like 45 in office, and then we had another 30 that were like offsite doing like customer service, but they weren't like official employees. It was like through this agency, but they only worked on kind of our brand. So like really 45 was like the number.
That is a lot of people to manage.
Keep everybody happy.
Yeah, like, do you find that you're a natural leader, or do you feel like you struggled at all in that position of, being the head of this company with 45 employees?
I don't think I'm a natural leader in the sense where it's tough, man. I mean, my leadership style is like, I want to be respected, but I also I have like a lot of empathy. So I empathize with other people's views on anything. Like if someone tells me an issue, I empathize with what they're going through. And I think sometimes you have to do what's in the best interest of the company. I think sometimes you can't share things because if you some things are like in process, in development, and like people just can't know. So I have a hard time with like a lot of that. And I think to be respected, sometimes you have to be like, sometimes it's just because it's my decision. Like I'm not going to have data that is going to back it. I think most of the time I would love to have data and be like, hey, this is why we're choosing this. But sometimes you're the founder and this is an intuitive thing. And like, this is my decision. I think most founders, not most, but I think a lot of founders are actually too much in that camp, or it's like, I'm the founder, we're doing it my way. I'm the best. And that's where like ego and all that gets in their head. I don't really lead in that sense. I want to empower people around me, but you have to have this balance of like, if people overstep or take advantage, like, you have to kind of lay down the law. And I'm not good at like having that tough conversation. And so, yeah, I don't know. I think in some ways I'm like I think a lot of people respected me, like, or at least I think that, like, they had a lot of good things to say but it's because I was nice. And sometimes sometimes you can't be nice. And I think I'm just too nice, I think is my issue. So,
I mean, you seem like a really nice guy.
Yeah. I think of you saying that makes me think of The Office when Michael Scott's like, do I want to be feared or respected? He's like, I want people to fear how much they respect me or something like that. I also was like laughing in my head because I'm like, I could picture you going into work one day, like in that 2-year period, and then you were just having like a bad day, or you were like, oh yeah, wait, I don't gotta be here, and then just like middle of the workday, you're like, I'm out, guys, like, I'll see you later.
Much, like,
never shows up again.
Yeah, just checking out is what happens. You just don't like. I mean, that's the reality, man. When there is conflict or issues, It's like what it was is you still feel like responsible for the people who joined and like, are there, but at the same time you're just like, man, like we did it. Like this is like, like a lot of the employees had equity, so a lot of employees at least made something. Like, it's, obviously I wish the company sold for $1 billion because everyone would have made more money, but like, it was what it was, and COVID hit afterwards, so it's like, yeah, you kind of do what you can. And then, but yeah, for sure, like, it was during COVID when I was like, we'd be on these Zoom calls, and I had stepped down as CEO at the time, so my responsibility was kind of minimal. And then I was just on these calls like, man, I don't even think I'm like adding value anymore. Like I'm not with it enough. And then that's when I was like, I gotta get out of here.
You talked a little bit earlier about kind of how your values have maybe a little bit changed since you were at the company before the early days. I want to know now, what are the most important ones to you? What are the most important values to you?
Yeah, I think so health and fitness are big ones, right? Like I've just, obviously dealing with mental health and just focusing on like some sort of practice in the gym, diet, sleep, like all those things that like there's videos or pictures of me where you see me during those years and I just looked kind of like more bags and like I just looked like I wasn't feeling good. I don't know how to explain it. And I think maybe it was lack of sleep. I think dinners weekly, drinking, at every dinner I went to, eating like shit, staying up late. Just kind of like, and I was in my 20s. So it's like, fuck it, like I guess that's what you kind of do at moments. But so health and fitness was a big one. And then I think on top of that, I think relationships is another one. Like I prioritized the business so much. And I still like hung out with friends and stuff like that. But I just realized that like, it's really important whoever that is, it could be family, it could be friends. Like, there's just some things that I probably said no to that I regret. And then, so I guess the basics, those are like the basics, right? It's like health, fitness, relationships, all very important. I think the one thing that I realized as I have been the last few years was sitting with, kind of just being complacent and not working on anything was that I need growth in my life. So, like figuring out what that growth is, right? Like, it makes me feel fulfilled when I'm not pushing myself and growing. Like I just feel complacent. I feel like I'm not living to my potential, right? Like living in Los Angeles, living in the United States, really living in California. It's like we already live in one of the best countries in the best, state, city. We're surrounded by people doing cool things. We've been given this opportunity, like one way or another. So just for me now, I'm just like, when I was sitting, just like kind of like rotting away, I'm like, fuck, I just feel like if I don't do something in the next handful of years, like, I just feel like it's just going to get worse and worse. It's going to get harder and harder. So, yeah, like that's why I'm doing this too. And I'm trying to continue to push myself. If something scares me, it's usually a sign to like really question if I should be doing that thing. As long as it's not like putting my life in danger. And even then it's like, I didn't like, I went skydiving. I didn't want to skydive. Like doing things that scare me sometimes. I'm like, fuck it, just do it, because you feel so good after you do the thing. So just growth in general, I'd say that's like another big one for me.
You've said you've put some time into, helping out young founders and young entrepreneurs. If you were to give a piece of advice to someone wanting to start a brand in 2024, what would that piece of advice be? Because I think that's something that me and Braden, want to do eventually down the road, kind of like we talked to you about. Like, we're doing the podcast, but I think it'd be really fun to do, a physical product or build some sort of brand like on top of what we're doing with the podcast. So it's kind of a personal question.
I don't know. I think one thing that helped me in any venture I've done is when I do something that I'm the consumer for, like if it's something that like I know that I want, I need, you're already, especially for your first product, like you're a step ahead, right? You're the demographic, other people who are in that demographic. You're going to understand the wants, the needs. I think thinking about it from a sense of like, e-commerce is a great place to start, low overhead. You guys already have a platform. You already have skill sets that like help, in the Shopify e-commerce world, YouTube, social media. Like, so, I think that's a big one. I think when you own a store, you have people, you rely on foot traffic. When you own a website, you rely on kind of visitors coming, and paid acquisition is a big way to do that, or just media, like social media and virality in that sense. So making sure you just get people to the website is like another big thing. But other than that, I think I just go back to like the test and learn, man. Like, be open-minded to give yourself enough time. Like, don't. I think test and learn isn't like test something for one day and be like, oh, we're done with this. It's just be open-minded to like, if it's not working, you have to like really ask yourself why it's not working, And sometimes the answer is like wrong place, wrong time. Sometimes it's, you know, we misstepped on this. Like there's so many reasons why it couldn't work. But like you learn from those tests and then you like, you know, iterate from there.
Do you feel content now, or would you say that's something you're actively trying to find?
I think I'm the closest I have been in a long time. I kind of overcorrected in ways. Like I'm living in Australia. So like I had that, you know, panic attack in the video as mentioned. And then I worked on this video. And after the panic attack, I got inspired to like double down on I was like, all right, YouTube video. This is the video I want to tell. This is the story I want to start with. What comes after, I don't know. But also I have to do inspiring shit to be inspiring. So I was like, okay, I got to go and do stuff. I have to travel. I have to do this. And then part of it was like, I've always had this pull towards living in Australia, or at least for a moment in time. So I moved here, and moving here during like a mental health kind of episode wasn't like necessarily the best thing. Like I've definitely had some down days here, but I've gotten stronger because of it. I've learned a lot because of it. And I've overcorrected in the sense where like, you know, I'm pretty much like, I'll still drink. I'm pretty much sober besides that, but even drinking, it's like very, very minimal. And I moved here. I'm primarily focused on the video. Like that's kind of my only priority right now. So it's like I've overcorrected in the sense where like I'm really focused here, and I feel like there's still some other areas of my life that I need to dabble in or like even out. Like I feel like I'm filling up. The analogy I used was like I have different cups, call them values, and it's like sometimes I'll fill up a cup all the way and like one's a little empty, and I've kind of like filled up all the cups all the way where now I know, okay, now I kind of know, now that I have this responsibility, this weight, I'm able to kind of balance out the rest of my values, balance out the rest of like my interests. And so I feel closer to being, content, but I'd say I'm like the best I have been in the last handful of years. So it feels good to be here.
That's awesome. I'm super happy for you. I have one more for you. What is some advice that you would give to your 18-year-old self before you went on this journey? If you go back and talk to your 18-year-old self, what's one thing you would say?
Those questions are tough because it's like you don't want to like you got to where you are, right? So you don't want to change the course of history. But I would just say be. I'm probably like my inner critic is mean, right? It's just aggressive. It's like that's part of like the success is like no one's going to be harder on me than I am. And I think just being a bit kinder, right? Like you can be motivated, you could strive for your absolute best without having to like tear yourself down in the process, because like even when you win, it mutes that inner critic for just a short period of time. So it's like I think just being kinder to yourself, and failing is part of the process. Trying is just showing up is like the accomplishment truly. And as long as you don't continue to make the same mistake, as long as you show up, and then, you know, can kind of, again, iterate or pivot from there. Like that's the most important thing. So right now in my life, it's about showing up. I still want to be successful, still want to make more money, still want views, all those things. But like, I'm not as focused on those. Fortunately, I don't have to be, but even if I was like starting over, I would try and just focus on showing up with those goals still there. But it's like, I just not going to be as like mean to myself, just about, you know, just hard on myself, I guess is the best way to put it. Yeah.
I love it. Jake, this has been episode 147 of the 505 podcast. If you're still here, please go check out that first YouTube channel linked in the description. And as always, we'll see you next week. Peace.